Let me tell you something right now. There was a time when India was seen through a lens of charity. A place people thought of only when there was a crisis or a call for aid. A place where the West sent documentaries, not dignity. Where news coverage was all about poverty, never about potential. But that time, that era, that chapter, it's over. Dead, buried, gone. Because what we're witnessing now is a new era. A new era where the United States of America is not just noticing India. They are respecting India. And not that kind of fake polite respect. I'm talking about real respect. The kind that makes you sit up straight. The kind that makes you pick up the phone instead of pointing a finger. The kind that only comes when you realize, hold up. These people aren't playing around anymore. India didn't demand that respect. It earned it. It earned it through grit, through patience, through pain, through sacrifice, through strategy, through decades of being underestimated. And let me tell you, there's nothing more powerful than a nation that's been underestimated for too long. You see, America ain't just waking up. America's in a full-blown shock. Like somebody who opened the door expecting a kitten and got greeted by a lion. Now let's talk facts. India was always rich in culture, always rich in wisdom, always rich in values. But now it's rich in power, in technology, in defense, in diplomacy, in data, in dignity. You can't run the world economy today without India. You can't build a tech empire without Indian engineers. You can't dominate space without looking over your shoulder to see what India is doing. And you sure as heaven can't hold a global summit without India showing up like a king to the table, not a guest in the hallway. You see, respect don't come when you ask for it. Respect comes when the people who used to look down on you now got to look eye to eye, and sometimes they even got to look up. That's where India is now. The United States used to treat India like the backup singer. Now India is holding the mic. America sees it. They see that India has become the manufacturing alternative to China. They see that India is where the supply chains are headed, where the business is booming, where the youth ain't just young, they're hungry. That demographic dividend, that's not just statistics. That's 1 billion voices building the future. That's not just numbers. That's thunder. America sees that India's got over 100 unicorn startups building billion-dollar companies like it's a sport. They're not just building apps. They're building an economy that can stand toe to toe with anyone. And the U.S. knows that. Now, let me tell you something even deeper. You see, respect isn't just about money and missiles. It's about mindset. India used to play it humble, used to keep its head down, used to speak softly even when it had something powerful to say. But now India has found its voice. And when India speaks, the world listens. Not just because of volume, but because of value. Every speech, every statement, every move, measured, mature, and mighty. That's what respect looks like. America respects that. Let's not act like America just decided one morning to start sending friendly tweets. No, it came from years of watching. Watching India stand tall, even when surrounded by threats. Watching India walk away from unfair deals. Watching India buy oil on its terms. Watching India say no to pressure, yes to principle. Watching India say we'll trade with who we want. We'll ally with who we choose. We'll vote how we believe. And if you don't like it, too bad. That kind of confidence, that kind of sovereignty, that earns respect. Let's not forget the pandemic. Oh, everybody saw it when the world went into lockdowns and chaos was spreading like wildfire. India didn't just curl up. It produced vaccines for itself, for the world, for free. While rich nations were hoarding, India was helping. That wasn't weakness. That was strength. That was leadership. And you better believe America saw it. And they remembered it. And that moment, that changed the conversation. Then you got the defense game. Lord have mercy. India ain't begging for weapons anymore. India's making weapons, designing, testing, exporting. You got fighter jets with Indian radar tech. You got missiles that can touch the sky and then come back down on target with pinpoint accuracy. America's not just watching those test launches. They're taking notes. They see AG&I. They see BrahMos. They see TED BF. They see the DRDO putting out systems that rival even the biggest names in the West. And most of all, they see that India doesn't want war, but it's more than ready for one. Then there's diplomacy. Let's talk about that swagger, because that's what it is. Indian diplomats now walk into rooms with quiet power. They don't raise their voices, they raise their points. Whether it's the United Nations or the G20, India walks in like a host, not a guest. Not because of arrogance, but because of legacy, because of logic, because of leadership. You got people around the world quoting Indian foreign policy speeches like they're poetry. That's not an accident. That's intention. That's respect. And then comes the cultural shift. Bollywood ain't just entertainment anymore. It's influence. Yoga, global. Ayurveda, mainstream. Indian food, everywhere. Indian music trending. Indian CEOs running some of America's biggest companies. From Google to Microsoft. From IBM to Adobe, Indians are steering the ships that power the West. And you better believe America noticed. You can't walk through Silicon Valley without bumping into Indian brilliance. And it ain't just tech, it's heart. It's hustle, it's heritage. Now let me bring this even closer. When the US looks at India now, they don't just see a nation. They see a force. They see a country with 1.4 billion stories. A country that never invaded another land, but has always been rich in soul, rich in tradition, and now rich in self-respect. Civilization, they see a democracy that's not perfect, but proud, messy, but mighty, free, but focused. And that combination, that balance, that soul, it commands respect. It wasn't always like this. Back in the day, America gave aid to India. Now they're signing pacts. Back then, it was about how much help India needed. Now it's about how much India can offer. The script has flipped. The tables have turned. The student has become the partner. The aid receiver has become the ally. Not a junior partner, not a token seat, a real partner, a key voice, a respected peer. And that, my friends, is what this new era is all about. See, America doesn't just respect strength, it respects consistency. And India has shown it. Every crisis, India rose. Every insult, India absorbed it. Every betrayal, India endured. And now India executes. That's what made the difference. Not drama, not headlines, results. Real ones over time, built on generations of sacrifice, struggle, and strategy. It's not flashy, but it's fire. Now let's not pretend this respect came free. Oh no. India had to earn every ounce of it with blood, with brains, with backbone. Had to deal with double standards, unfair narratives, and cold shoulders. But India didn't cry, didn't crumble. It calculated, it climbed, it created, and now it's celebrated. There's something poetic about the fact that after decades of lectures, India is now giving lessons. After years of being told how to behave, India is setting examples. After centuries of colonization and exploitation, India is now defining the rules. And the ones who once ruled, they're now learning how to follow. That's not revenge. That's renewal. This is what a new era looks like. It looks like India taking center stage without asking for permission. It looks like America leaning in, not leaning back. It looks like a future that's polar multi-cultural and mutually respectful. It looks like collaboration over control. It looks like real talk, not token gestures. So when you see India hosting global summits, making billion-dollar trade deals, getting space missions right the first time, launching next-gen digital payment platforms, standing up to aggressive neighbors, building smart cities, investing in green tech, empowering women, uplifting villages. You're not just seeing development. You're seeing dignity in motion. You're seeing destiny unfold. You're seeing why America had no choice but to finally, truly, deeply, respectfully stand up and say, yes, we see you and we respect you. And that respect, that acknowledgement, that new tone, it ain't temporary. It's tectonic. A shift in the ground beneath us. The start of a new alignment. A redefinition of what power looks like in the 21st century. Not just military might, but moral clarity. Not just GDP, but grit. Not just alliances, but authenticity. This is India's time. Not because anyone gave it, but because India took it. With silence when it was mocked. With patience when it was ignored. And now with confidence when it's finally heard. This isn't about catching up. This is about catching fire. A new fire. A fire the world can't ignore. A fire that says India is not a rising power anymore. It's a standing one in America. America finally sees that. And that is why the respect is real. The rise of Indian leadership in multinational companies has proven that India doesn't follow the world. it helps run it. This shift didn't happen overnight. It took decades of quiet excellence, relentless work ethic, and strategic brilliance. But now it's undeniable. From Silicon Valley to Wall Street, from the boardrooms of Europe to the innovation hubs of Asia, Indian-born leaders are not just participating in the global economy. They're shaping it. They're not just employees in someone else's system. They're architects of the new one. Think about it. You've got Sundar Pichai leading Google and Alphabet, overseeing one of the most powerful tech ecosystems in the world. The products his teams have pushed, search, Android, YouTube, are foundational to how the modern world operates. Under his guidance, Google hasn't just grown. It has evolved. It has diversified. It has become smarter, more responsible, and more globally aware. He brings that calm, strategic, detail-oriented Indian thinking to a fast-paced, hype-fueled Western corporate model. And what comes out is a hybrid leadership style that thrives in complexity. Then there's Satya Nadella at Microsoft. When he took over, the company was stagnating. Under his leadership, Microsoft didn't just make a comeback. It became one of the most valuable companies on earth. Cloud computing, AI integration, developer tools, accessibility. He brought a sense of empathy and human-centric innovation that turned Microsoft into a powerhouse again. Nadella's Indian upbringing didn't hold him back. It gave him the edge. That sense of humility, the ability to listen before acting, to focus on long-term vision instead of short-term noise. That's deeply rooted in Indian values. And the world now sees it as strength. These are not outliers. Arvind Krishna is leading IBM. Shantanu Narayan runs Adobe. Raj Subramaniam is the CEO of FedEx. Leena Nair became the global CEO of Channel. Parag Agrawal briefly held the reins of Twitter. Laxman Narasimhan is now the CEO of Starbucks. These names aren't just high profile. They're symbols of a deeper truth. Indian leadership has become synonymous with global leadership. These individuals carry with them the DNA of a country that has mastered the art of resilience, complexity, and adaptability. And when you insert the DNA into the bloodstream of Western corporations, the results are transformative. This rise didn't come from privilege. It came from perseverance. Many of these leaders came from modest backgrounds. Government schools, middle-class homes, parents who valued education like it was oxygen. Many of them took overnight trains to attend engineering exams. They studied in IIT and IM, where the competition was brutal and the margin for error was zero. They left their homeland not for luxury, but for opportunity. And when they got that opportunity, they didn't just survive, they outperformed. What makes Indian leadership unique is its ability to blend discipline with empathy, logic with emotion, ambition with humility. This comes from centuries of philosophical depth, spiritual grounding, and intellectual rigor. It comes from growing up in a society where chaos is normal, where systems don't always work, and where success requires negotiation, collaboration, and creative problem solving at every step. That's why Indian leaders thrive in multinational environments. They don't get overwhelmed by complexity. They're built for it. Western leadership models often emphasize speed, scale, and disruption. Indian leadership, on the other hand, brings patience, long-term thinking, and balance. It focuses not just on shareholder value, but stakeholder value. It asks, what's the impact on society, on the employee, on the ecosystem? And that's exactly the kind of thinking the world is now craving, especially in a post-pandemic era where trust, sustainability, and inclusivity have become non-negotiable. This isn't just a business story. It's a geopolitical one, when Indian CEOs make strategic decisions that affect global supply chains, data privacy, healthcare technology, and climate innovation. They're not just influencing stock prices. They're shaping the global order. These decisions echo in Washington, in Brussels, in Beijing. When Microsoft opens a new data center in India, when Google invests billions in rural connectivity, when Adobe sets up AI research labs in Bengaluru, those aren't just corporate moves. They're acts of soft power. They are examples of how Indian intellect, Indian leadership, and Indian strategy are influencing global direction. The beauty is that these leaders are not trying to imitate American or European styles. They're bringing their whole selves into the job. They speak with Indian accents. They carry Indian names. They celebrate Indian festivals with their global teams. They normalize Indian excellence without the need to erase their identity. And this authenticity is what inspires the next generation. Young Indian professionals now know they don't have to become someone else to lead. They can lead as they are. This ripple effect is massive. In universities, you now see young Indian students walking taller. They know that the world no longer sees them as just support talent. They see the path laid by those who came before. In companies, Indian employees no longer feel the ceiling above them is made of glass. They see that with competence, consistency, and character, the top is reachable. The mental shift from, can I make it, to, when will I make it, is perhaps the most powerful transformation of all. Let's also talk about how this changes India's brand on the global stage. When a nation's citizens rise to global prominence in peaceful, positive, productive ways that shapes perception more than any marketing campaign. The rise of Indian leadership in multinationals is India's finest public diplomacy tool. It tells the world this country raises thinkers, builders, visionaries. It tells the world India is not a threat. India is a force for stability, for growth, for wisdom. At home, this creates a new sense of pride. Parents in small towns now believe their children can reach the heights of global success without having to compromise their values. It's no longer about escaping India to succeed abroad. It's about representing India while succeeding abroad. And that shift in narrative from escape to representation is revolutionary. Meanwhile, Western countries are evaluating what leadership talent looks like. Diversity is no longer a checkbox. It's a necessity. And Indian professionals who for years were underpaid, overlooked or underestimated, are now being courted. Companies are setting up shop in India, not just to save costs, but to access brilliance. To tap into a mindset that blends technical mastery with ethical grounding. To partner with people who can think globally and act locally. That's not outsourcing. That's trust. You also see how Indian leadership changes the culture of the companies they run. Workplaces become more collaborative, more respectful, more thoughtful, more inclusive. Hierarchies flatten a bit. Listening becomes more important than shouting. Strategy replaces ego. Compassion balances ambition. These aren't just softer skills. They are smarter ones. In a volatile world, emotional intelligence isn't optional. It's essential. And Indian leaders are showing that you can be tough without being toxic. You can be driven without being ruthless. You can lead without losing your soul. Nowhere is this more evident than in crisis moments. Whether it's layoffs, product failures, or political pressure, Indian CEOs have shown how to stay grounded, stay clear, and stay humane. They don't panic, they pause. They assess, they realign, and most importantly, they communicate not with slogans, but with substance. This is why boards trust them. This is why shareholders follow them. This is why employees admire them. Respect isn't demanded. It's demonstrated. The tech world may have opened the door, but Indian leadership is now stepping into every room. Finance, fashion, logistics, pharma, food, retail, entertainment. Even global institutions like the World Bank, IMF, and United Nations are now seeing more Indian origin professionals in advisory and leadership roles. This isn't just a win for the individual. It's a signal to the world that Indian intellect is no longer confined to India. It is helping steer humanity. All this reinforces one powerful idea. India no longer follows the world. It helps run it. Not by dominance, but by example. Not by force, but by trust. The leadership coming out of India is not asking for a seat at the table. It's building new tables, inviting new voices, shaping new futures. And the world, it's not just watching, it's learning. It's adapting. India's transformation is not a stroke of luck or a trend born out of temporary circumstances. It is a testament to the power of perseverance, clarity of purpose, and an identity rooted in timeless values. What the world is witnessing today is not just economic growth or diplomatic strength. It is a civilization reclaiming its rightful place, not through conquest or conflict, but through contribution. A nation that was once dismissed now sits at tables where decisions about the future of the world are made. A people who were once expected to follow are now leading with poise, precision, and a powerful sense of responsibility. This rise is not about replacing others, but about redefining what leadership can look like. It is not about replicating Western models of power, but about showing that there's another way to lead, with empathy, with ethics, and with endurance. India's voice is no longer an echo in global corridors. It is a voice that sets the tone, a voice that is calm yet commanding, humble yet assertive. From tech giants to global summits, from scientific breakthroughs to philosophical contributions, India's presence is undeniable and its impact is unavoidable. And what makes this story even more powerful is its authenticity. Indian leaders are not changing themselves to be accepted. They are being accepted for who they are, with Indian names, Indian accents, Indian traditions, and Indian philosophies. They are leading the world, not as copies of another culture, but as proud products of their own. That kind of leadership doesn't just change boardrooms. It changes narratives. It sends a message to every young dreamer in a small village, every student studying by candlelight, every professional navigating challenges abroad, that who you are is not a limitation. It is your greatest asset. The Indian story is reshaping how nations view success. No longer is it about domination. It is about elevation. It is about lifting others while lifting yourself. It is about building not just wealth, but wisdom. And in a time when the world is seeking new answers, new models, and new mindsets, India stands ready, not to imitate, but to innovate. Not to shout, but to shape. Not to take, but to transform. That is why the respect is real. That is why the world is listening. And as India continues to rise, it does so not in isolation, but with open hands and a full heart, offering solutions, extending partnerships, and creating a world where leadership is no longer defined by geography, but by values. The future isn't something India is waiting for. It's something India is building, brick by brick, code by code, thought by thought. This is not the beginning of India's story, but the rebirth of its global chapter. One where the world doesn't just include India, it is inspired by it. And in this new era, India doesn't need to ask for respect, because the world has already begun to give it. Willingly, wholeheartedly, and permanently.